husband was ISIS, and her son, she don't know where is he now, and also he was in the ISIS.
かつてシリアとイラクにまたがる広大な地域を支配し、世界を恐怖に陥れたテロ組織イスラム国。今回は夫や兄弟などの家族がかつてイスラム国の戦闘員として関わっていた女性たちを取材しました。かつて世界を恐怖に陥れた組織と関わりを持った人たちは今どんな暮らしをしているのか、その実態に迫ります。
今私たちがいる施設はどういった場所でしょうか？
ここはモスル市内の、ローカル NGO のオフィスなんですけれど、元 IS ファミリーと呼ばれている女性や子どもたち、元ファミリーの人たちが通っています。サイコソーシャルプログラムとしてハンドクラフトとかいろいろなこと、ミシンとかいろいろやってますし、それからトラウマケア、メンタルヘルスケアとかそういったものもやっています。
元 IS のファミリーってどういうことですか？
例えばお父さんとか、それからお兄さんとか、その親戚の中の誰か一人とか、とにかく誰かが IS の戦闘員になってしまった。でそれで家族たちはついていかなければならなかったけれども IS のファミリーというふうにこう言われている人たちなんです。
この施設で心理社会支援を受けている受益者の方たちっていうのはどこからやってきた方たちなんでしょうか？
隣国シリアの北東部にあるアルホル難民キャンプというところから皆さん帰還している人たちです。そのアルホルキャンプっていうのはもともとは難民キャンプとして開いていて、規模としては9000人規模ぐらいのキャンプだったんですけれども、 IS 掃討作戦がイラクとシリアで長期間行われることになり、そこにどんどん IS の関係者、 IS ファミリーの人たちとかがどんどんそこに入るようになりました。でその中では基本的に3つに分かれていて、イラク国籍者、シリア国籍者、それからそれ以外で、ここのそれ以外のところはだいたい50カ国ぐらいの国籍者の人たちがいたんですね。一番最初2017年ぐらいのピークの時で全部合わせて7万人ぐらいいました。今現在は半分ぐらいに減っています。でそれは主にイラクとかシリアの人たちが、それぞれのリハビリとかを終えて、それぞれに帰って帰還している。ここの施設にいる人たちはアルホルキャンプから帰還して、まずはイラク側のジェッタリハビリテーションセンターで3ヶ月から6ヶ月のリハビリを受けて、今ここの自分たちの町に戻ってきているというところです。
この施設にいる受益者のほとんどが女性なんですけれども、その背景にはどういった理由があるんですか？
女性たちが進んで IS になったというわけではなくて、1人か2人家族の中から、あるいは親戚の中から、夫があるいは兄弟が IS に入ってしまったっていう背景を持っている人たちがほとんどです。男性の社会の中で女性たちはついていくしかなかった、選択肢はなかった。要するに選択肢がないままに家族ともども行かざるを得なかった、 IS から移動するように命じられてしまったというような背景があります。なので家族の中に一人そういう人が出てしまったけれども、彼女たちにとってはもうはっきり言っても被害者のように、もうそこで抗う術もなく、そしてさらにスティグマを負わされているっていうような状況なんですよね。
When did you come back to Mosul?
This one came back 1 year ago, and they are come back 2 weeks ago.
How many years were there in Al-Hol camp?
So she was there for 4 years, and they are 7 years.
How was your life at Al-Hol refugee camp? Any comments?
So it was terrible, and we had a lot of fears there.
What was the biggest challenge at your life at Al-Hol refugee camp?
So they was living in a tent. There was a lot of challenge to take water and food.
How is your life after you came back to Mosul from Al-Hol refugee camp?
So it's very difficult because their own home is already destroyed by the war. So they are now must to rent another house in another area from their own area to live in. So this is a difficult, especially that their financial state is very bad. Okay, so first of all is the lack of the documentary, the legal documents, they had, and also the lack of the job opportunities. Also their children not going to the schools now because of, so they have a legal problem now. lose their father or the husband and mother, so they don't have the man who is working to get the money. She said in the camp we had a lot of the international NGOs who was helping us, but now there is no NGOs helping us. We are now only women and children without any men. So her husband is dead and she has 7 children. She is the breadwinner for them, and she has one of them are mentally ill. So she said 2 of my children are sick and they have to go in continuously to the doctor. So I don't have the money to bring for them the treatment. And all of our children are too young and they are children in the school age and no one is working and we don't have any salaries from the government.
So now how do they manage their money or their income?
So they said a lot of times we are sleeping without eating anything just to save money for paying the house rent. They are managing their life just to pay the house rent, to not be in the street. They don't eat, they don't buy clothes or something. Even if one of the family are sick, they will not bring him to the hospital or to the doctor because they don't have the money for that. They are saving the money only for the house rent.
Basically, I have the knowledge about the Iraqi government. That they supposed to provide the food and the medication
Yes.
for free. So all of them
That's because-
has no legal document.
Exactly.
No legal status.
Yes, yes. One of them they are losses in the war, and the other one they must have money to pay for the lawyer.
After you came back to Mosul, have you ever experienced racism or stereotype from neighbors?
They are visiting us and welcoming us back to the Mosul. Yes, so they didn't face any racism or any bad treatment from the people in Mosul.
You don't want to answer this question. They don't
Okay,
answer,
yeah.
but like, do their neighbors know that you?
Her husband was ISIS, and the neighbors already know, and they are treat her like normally. There is nothing happened. And her son, she don't know where is he now, and also he was with the ISIS. We have a good treatment from the neighbors and the friends and the relatives.
So neighbors can understand their situation. You can get some support from someone.
Okay.
What kind of job do you want to try?
I'll be housewife because I have a lot of children to take care of them. I just want a job opportunity for my son, my biggest son.
How old is he?
Okay, 19. So she is already a tailor and she wants to open a sewing project. She likes to make bread, the Iraqi bread. So that the Iraqi government not depend on the documents from the Al-Hol camp. When her husband died there, so the death certificate, they didn't depend on it. So her girl is 10 years old now and she didn't go to the school, never, because she don't have the legal document. She needs about $700. So those two are, they don't have the ID for their children because the children, I think they are born in the home. Yes. In Iraq, the children, when we is born in the hospital, we had the certificate of the hospital. Depend on this the certificate, the government gonna give them ID. So they lose this certificate, the hospital certificate, and their children are born during the time of the war. So that's why they don't have the ID.
كنا احنا جزيرة جو بعد ساكنين الحرب يهاجمونا الدواعش يضربون على الجيش الجيش.
So she is already don't have any of her family member like with the government or within the ISIS. She is already like civil family, okay? But their home was on the border between the Iraq and Syria, so that's why she moved.
جهازها وماكو فلوس نضل بالعراق وين نروح؟ فخلينا نقول أقرب شيء علينا نروح نأمن.
So they went to the Al-Hol camp for safety only. She said, I'm scared from the voices of the airplane and for the sounds of the war, and I was just seeking for safety for my children and my family. That's why we moved to the Al-Hol camp.
What was the biggest challenge at your life in Al-Hol refugee camp?
والله يعني هم ما خسروا يعني بس ما كانوا يخلونا نطلع ما كان يكون يعني.
She said the biggest challenge was we was around 200 to 300 people in one tent, one big tent, and they was making with us like investigations and asking us a lot of questions. For her, like a victim, it was a big challenge because she don't have any relationship with any sides.
يعني مريض ما يطلعون إلا هم يودون إسعاف إلا مخطط فرد مرة يعني.
And she said inside the Al-Hol camp we cannot go outside of the camp. It was like a jail, and if any one of us was sick or need for hospital, they wasn't allow us to go outside till the point when the person will dead.
حتى يشوفون واحد يخابر كثير ما يحب.
They didn't allow us also to make a phone calls.
What is so strict in terms of security or government to control the refugee?
غير يخافون على نفسهم من الدواعش يعني الاشخاص اللي صاروا داخل المخيم صاروا اشخاص خطرين؟ اي كل بين خطر يعني بس احنا حتى الحريم ما نخلوا تطلع.
So she said because the people which is inside the camp were dangerous people. So that's why the security was very. The whole camp was like two departments, one for the Syrian people and the other one for the Iraqi people. So they were treating the Iraqi people with racism and a very badly treatment.
Did you confront any challenges when you escape from Mosul to Erbil?
Dead and we came back to life because when we were walking, escaping from Mosul, the airplane was above us and fire was above us. There was an old man with them escaping and he died at that time in the street during escaping from Mosul. They all was thirsty and hungry. There wasn't water or food or water cycles for them. The situation was miserable.
After Mosul became free and after you came back to Mosul, how is your life?
So she said when I came back to Mosul, I started to make the handmade, doing the handmade and the tableaus, and she is selling it on the social media.
When do you feel happy at your work?
When she has like positive feedback from the people that buying her product and her handmade material, so she feel happy when she see the people are happy.
Okay, شكرا جزيلا. شكرا. What kind of symptom do they suffer from?
الأعراض اللي تظهر عليهم من الناحية الجسدية هناك آلام جسدية وصداع.
So basically there is some unexplained somatization symptoms. Maybe it's like headache, insomnia, some maybe joint ache or something. There is emotionally uncontrolling, and there is something it's referring from repeating some circumstances or some events. So maybe we can say there is some triggers or stressors. It's normal for a normal people or people they don't go with this kind of events, but it's trigger them so much and make them in a panic situations.
What kind of incidents made these beneficiaries traumatized?
الأحداث اللي سببت الصدمة لهؤلاء هي أحداث الحرب.
Okay, the causes or the incidents that caused this kind of PTSD, it's the war circumstances. The war circumstances that it's happened in 2014 within Mosul. So the whole journey from the beginning of the war and ending them within a whole camp, it was like a very traumatized. They are starting with it's that occupied or be in Mosul in a forced way for years, and after that they forced to displaced to Al-Hol camp. Within Al-Hol camp there is a lot of hard circumstances related to danger exposure, related to torture, related to a lot of them that that there are some siblings or some parts of their family that killed behind or in front of them. So this is just an examples of what I suffering or what they see inside the hole or before that being in a hole.
What is the purpose of this facility and what kind of support do you give to beneficiaries?
المركز هو يقدم خدمات الدعم النفسي بصورة عامة في عدة أقسام وكل قسم يقوم بعدة أنشطة وعدة.
Okay, so we are basically IID, Iraqi Institution for Development. So the purpose of this institute are to reinforce the reintegration process for the Iraqi returnees from Al-Hol camp, and also to encourage or to work under the PVE umbrella, prevent extremity violence. We are working for two sections. We are working on mental health and MHPSS, and we are serving them regarding to education. We have also a PSS team. We have another kind of intervention. It's like bi-recreational activities. We are trying to reintegrate them or to make them more engaged with the society by this kind of activities. It's like
夫や兄がイスラム国の戦闘員に加わり、自らはついていくしか選択肢がなかった女性たち。報道されるニュースでは決して伝わってこない彼女たちの声をお伝えしました。今回はインタビューを中心にお届けしましたが、現場の状況も含めて次回の動画でさらに掘り下げていきます。皆さんの感想が動画作りの励みになります。ぜひ皆さんの感想をコメント欄で聞かせてください。海外で活躍する日本人や大手のメディアでは知れない世界の実情をもっと知りたいという方、ハラカンタの YouTube 活動を応援していただけないでしょうか。ハラカンタの海外取材はハラカンタを応援するサポーターズクラブの皆様のご支援によって成り立っています。もしハラカンタの活動を支えてくださる方がいらっしゃいましたら、ご無理のない範囲で構いません。マンスリーサポーターになっていただけないでしょうか。一口1000円からご加入いただけます。少しでも興味のある方、概要欄のリンクからサポーターズクラブのホームページをご覧ください。ということで、今回も最後までご視聴くださりありがとうございました。また次回の動画でお会いしましょう。